Combat in Silksong is confusing. In this video, I said I didn't understand how combat in Silksong works, and that really frustrated me. So I spent a ton of time watching every single frame of footage I could find, and in this video I'll explain everything I've learned about Silksong's combat. Firstly, let's start with the core differences between Hollow Knight and Silksong. The combat in Silksong is shaping up to be even more fast-paced than Hollow Knight. Hornet has a way more acrobatic moveset with flips, pogos, tools, mid-air healing, grappling hooks, dashes, running and even backpedaling. This gives us much more mobility, allowing players to dart in and out of enemy range quickly. But it's not just Hornet who's gotten an upgrade, the enemies have too. They're smarter, faster and designed to challenge your new agility. All this movement will change the game quite a lot from Hollow Knight, and it will allow you to approach your enemies and bosses in a myriad of different ways. Some enemies like the bellheads and shielded foes can't be damaged from every angle, so you'll need to look for specific openings to deal damage effectively. Enemy attacks are also more interactive. For example, in Deep Dog's footage, we see Hornet knock an enemy projectile back at them, suggesting that timing and precision will have even more of an importance than before. Next, let's talk about the healing system. The healing system in Silksong has also been drastically reworked. Silk is the new core resource in Silksong, replacing Soul from Hollow Knight, and you will need it to heal. Unlike the Knight, Hornet doesn't focus Soul while standing still. Instead, she uses an ability called Bind, wrapping herself in silk to heal. Bind can be used while moving, even in midair, and instead of healing one mask at a time, Hornet heals for 3 masks per bind. However, this power comes at a cost. Literally, by the healing cost being higher than in Hollow Knight. Healing requires 9 notches of silk, which Hornet builds up by hitting enemies. Each hit grants 1 notch, and notches are displayed in the silk meter, which functions similarly to the Knight's soul vessel. Once you have 9 notches, the silk in your silk meter will light up. The new front-facing silk spool in the HUD also lights up when Hornet has enough silk to use Bind. In almost every gameplay clip, this has been a consistent visual cue. Once you can heal, your HUD glows. However, there are a few exceptions, such as the Huntress gift where Hornet's silk meter is glowing but the front-facing spool remains dark. And not too long after this gift, we also got Set's gift where we can clearly see that both the silk meter and the silk spool are glowing. So this might just be a UI bug from an earlier build of the game. The silk meter can also be upgraded. When it is, small metallic notches are added, marking the points required for healing. As Hornet gathers silk, the silk meter fills up and each section lights up, giving a clear indication of how much silk will be used to heal. This silk meter can also be broken, presumably after Hornet dies. To restore it, you'll probably need to destroy a cocoon left behind, similarly to recovering your shade in Hollow Knight. This effect was not seen in the E3 demo, but that is likely because it was not added to the game at that point. As for the health upgrades, they work just like in Hollow Knight. You'll find mask shards throughout the game, and collecting 4 will increase your maximum health by 1. How many of these shards exist in Silksong is still unknown. Finally, we'll cover how Crests affect this system in a later section, but one key detail is that equipping certain Crests will reduce the silk cost of healing from 9 to 6 or 5, making healing more accessible during battle. One of the biggest differences in Silksong's combat system is the complete removal of charms. In Hollow Knight, charms gave you buffs like increased damage, faster healing and faster movement, etc. In Silksong, those are replaced by tools and crests, which like the charms are equipable while resting at benches. Tools will provide you with new attacks or abilities. According to the E3 Treehouse demo, they're activated with the R button. If you only have one tool equipped, pressing the R button will use it, but if you've equipped multiple tools, you'll press up or down plus the R button to use the tool of your choosing. There are 3 categories of tools: red, blue, and yellow. Red tools are the most frequently shown and are most likely active weapons or combat tools, and only 2 at a time can be used. Blue and yellow tools, however, may provide more passive effects or utility functions. This is probably set up like this so you wouldn't need to use 100 buttons to use every tool you equipped. You can acquire these tools in 2 main ways. Firstly, finding them in the world, like one of the pin tools placed near the table above Grindel's cell, or by having them crafted by the Forge Daughter, a character shown in the E3 Treehouse demo. To craft a tool, you'll need to provide materials and compensation for her time. This material is probably something like the pale ore. One of the materials we've seen so far is the shell shards, which drop from enemies and certain breakable objects. We don't know if shell shards are used for crafting new tools, but we do know that Hornet uses them to repair or replenish the tools she is currently using. That's another key difference from the charms. Tools can actually run out during your fight and must be replenished at benches. This mechanic seems to apply primarily to the red tools, while blue and yellow tools may work more like passive and utility abilities. The number and type of tools you can equip will depend on your crest, which we'll talk about later. As of now, we've identified 29 different tools, although we haven't seen all of them in action, and only a few of them have confirmed names. So let's go through each one of them. Firstly, the red tools. The straight pin, likely one of the first tools you acquire, we saw the most footage of it. It is a projectile weapon that flies in a straight line and does damage to enemies it hits. The refill cost of this tool is 4 shell shards for each use. The second tool is the tri-pin, an upgraded version of the straight pin. As the name suggests, Hornet throws 3 pins in a spread pattern similar to the Primal Aspid's attack. The tool is either obtained by upgrading the straight pin or is found above Grindel's jail cell, where we see a table with multiple pins on it and a tool next to it. Next up, the caltrops. We've seen 2 versions of this tool's icon, but only one we saw in action, and it's this one. When used, Hornet throws 4 spiked objects that damage enemies on contact. This tool is probably an upgraded version of the singular caltrop. Next up is the spiked trap that Hornet uses in her second fight in Hollow Knight. Now, the exact name of this tool is unknown. On the Hollow Knight wiki, the tool is called Sting Shards. But if we consider the file name of this image we got from a metadata extraction, the shell with barb trap, we could presume that this tool is called the Barb Trap, but file names and in-game item names are not always the same. This tool works like an upgraded version of the attack the Hornet uses against the Knight. When deployed, it erupts in spikes when enemies come near. After it activates, it disappears after a few seconds. Other than a weapon, it can also be used as a pogo platform. The Cogfly tool is a glowing womb-like tool that allows you to spawn small red mechanical creatures that follow Hornet. Unlike the glowing womb, you will actually need to click the tool button to spawn one of these, as we see here where Hornet throws one cogfly out. It's unclear whether these cogflies deal damage or not. The pin pillow, a grenade-like tool that Hornet throws at enemies, and it explodes when ignited or on impact, dealing damage in a large area around it to both friends and foes alike. So using this tool in a small room could result in you dying as well. From this point on, all the tools that I will show will be described shortly, since we don't really have enough information about them and we don't even know their names, so the names that I will refer to these tools by are just my assumptions. The Spear Needle tool. We saw this tool multiple times in Hornet's HUD, but we only see her use it in this image. We can see it bears strong similarities to this enemy's spear, so this might be an indicator we get it in this area. The Buzzsaw tool that Hornet clearly stole from the White Palace. Not much can be said here. Hornet throws out a spinning saw along the ground that damages anything in its path, and there's no confirmed name yet. The Lifeblood Syringe. It is an active tool that when used grants Hornet 2 lifeblood masks. The Tusk Daggers were shown in Hornet's inventory once, but we didn't see it ever used. But we have seen the Ant tribe use this weapon as daggers, so this could possibly be the place where we get it from. The Bone Boomerang appears in Hornet's inventory across a few screenshots, though we never see it being used. The Drill Cloak we actually saw being used in one trailer, and when used, Hornet's cloak transforms into a drill, dealing damage to enemies unfortunate enough to find themselves under her. The Red Drill tool is a throwable drill that bounces off walls and pierces enemies multiple times before breaking. Its design also resembles this boss, suggesting a possible connection. The Green Pin Pillow, possibly a more or less upgraded version of the Pin Pillow, but it also could be a completely different tool. We don't know the name of it or its purpose. The fiery pine cone keychain tool was also seen in many screenshots, but we don't know its name or its effect. The orange gourd tool, we don't really know what it does, but in two separate screenshots where it is equipped, we see Hornet's silk meter being extended, suggesting that it may temporarily increase your maximum silk when used. And the final red tool is this unidentified object, this mysterious tool with no known name or function. And if I am correct, that is all the red tools we have seen so far. And now for the blue tools, possibly the passive tools. Not a single one of them can be seen in Hornet's hut, not a single one do we know the name of, and maybe only 3 of them have we ever seen being used, and that is also a maybe. So let's start with the ones I think have been used. There are 2 different green tools we have footage of, and one or both of these may be tied to this small green orb that appears at the end of Hornet's silk meter in this screenshot right here and in Grindel's gift. What do these tools do? We don't know. It could represent silk regeneration, but that is up for a debate. And the only other tool that is possibly seen being used is this barbed wire tool that we see equipped in Hornet's inventory. It could be tied to these spikes around Hornet's masks. The effect that this tool grants could be something like the Thorns of Agony. Other tools that we see is this Weaver-like tool that I guess will grant you more silk from hitting enemies, this exoskeleton-like tool that I have not a single idea on what it could do, next more of these indescribable shapes, this purple cabbage tool, and this shield-like tool. And that's all the blue tools we know of, if I didn't miss any. And finally, the tools of which we don't even have a clear image of are the yellow tools. We only see 3 of them, and those are this compass tool that's likely a replacement for the wavered compass, this necklace-like tool, this face-like tool, and possibly a 4th one is the silk extension tool that we see in Hornet's hut in this screenshot. And that covers everything we know about tools so far. Even though we don't know a lot, and even though we only see 29 of them, I'm convinced that we've barely scratched the surface. There's a lot more waiting for us in Silksong, and I'm sure we haven't seen the half of what Team Cherry has in store for us. Now, for what might be the biggest addition to Silksong's combat, the Crest system. Crests are the new equipable items that change Hornet's HUD, her attacks with her needle, and possibly even her abilities. They dictate how many and what type of tools Hornet can equip, and they might even affect the nail damage. We don't know yet how we'll acquire different crests or if they'll be upgradable, but we already seen quite a few of them. So far, we've seen 7 crests. We haven't seen all of them in action, but based on the ones we have seen, it seems like each crest alters Hornet's attacks, her silk meter, and even her silk spool. This is already a huge departure from how the Knight handled combat in Hollow Knight, where the basic nail attacks couldn't really be altered outside the range and the niche charms like Grubberfly's Elegy. So let's go through these crests one by one. At the start of the game, you'll likely begin with something like the Wanderer's Crest. With this one, you can equip the one tool of each type, and it probably serves as a default crest. It doesn't seem to change Hornet's basic attacks or moveset, but one interesting thing to note about this crest, even though we don't see a dedicated slot for equipping special skills, we'll talk about those later, Hornet can still perform the Silk Spear move while this crest is equipped. So special skills may be available by default, or they could be tied to certain crests without needing to equip them manually. Next up is a seemingly more defensive and passive crest I'll call the Harp Crest. And I call it the Harp Crest because once your silk spool lights up, the crest opens up into a harp. And you can pretty clearly see it's the same crest by these small pointy parts on the crest that match each other. I call this a defensive crest because it seems to focus more on healing. With this crest equipped, the cost of Hornet's bind ability drops from 9 silk notches to just 6. We also see a smaller silk spool and fewer total silk notches. Hornet's attack animation also changes. Instead of the half circle slash like with the Wanderer's Crest, this one forms a parabolic arc. We don't know yet how many tools you can equip with this crest, but in all the footage we've seen so far, Hornet only has one red tool equipped, just like with the Wanderer's Crest, so it might share the same limitations. This next one is the newest crest we've seen, the Mechanical Crest. We only seen a single image of it, so information is limited, In this image, Hornet's heal cost is the standard 9 silk notches, and she has 2 red tools equipped. Based on the mechanical appearance of this crest, I suspect that this crest boosts mechanical tools like the buzzsaw, but that's just a speculation. And we don't know yet if this crest affects Hornet's needle attacks. Now for a slightly better documented crest, the bow crest. While we haven't seen it much in motion, we do have 3 distinct images of it. In 2 of them, Hornet is attacking using her downward dash, so we can't really say how this crest changes her normal attacks. The silk cost with this crest is the usual 9 notches, but there is something strange about this crest. We see the crest empty and not glowing, which makes sense as Hornet doesn't have enough silk to perform anything. In the next image, we see Hornet has enough silk to heal, as seen in her silk meter, and her silk spool is also glowing. But in the next image, we don't really see anything change. Hornet still has 2 masks of health missing, her silk meter is still full, but her crest is now fully lit up together with the silk spool, and no obvious gameplay action has happened between the two. I originally thought maybe this was a part of the crest's lighting up animation, but that doesn't make sense given the timing and how fast those animations usually are, so for now this one remains a mystery. Next up is the bear claw crest. We actually seen a good amount of footage of this one. This crest drastically changes Hornet's needle attacks. With this crest, her slashes become more sporadic and wild. Her pogo attack is replaced with this Sonic-like spinning dive, and her standard slashes become more claw-like with multi-hit animations, much more aggressive than the usual sweeping arcs. This crest also supports up to 2 red tools and retains the standard 9 silk bind cost. What's especially interesting about this crest is that Hornet is seen using 3 unique skills while this crest is equipped: the Gossamer Storm, the Sharp Shadow-like dash, and this giant slash attack which looks like the great slash nail art from Hollow Knight. This might suggest that crests are also tied to which skills Hornet can access. Now for our second to last crest, and it's the spiky crest that the Silksong fans refer to as the Reaper crest, even though the name has not officially been confirmed. The Reaper crest is the only other crest aside from the Wanderer's crest that we've seen in Hornet's actual inventory UI. Unlike the Wanderer's crest, which only lets you equip 1 tool of each type, the Reaper crest allows 2 tools of each type and introduces a new central slot seemingly for the special skills, like the Silk Spear. In fact, Hornet is seen using the Silk Spear with this crest equipped, which makes me think that this crest either comes with the skill or simply enables the usage of different skills while it is equipped. Needle attacks are also visually distinct. They are thicker and shaped more like the blade of a sickle, fitting for a Reaper crest. Here's where things get juicy. There's an image titled Crest Reaper, showing Hornet seemingly killing someone, so this might actually be the moment you obtain the Reaper crest. There is a symbol that flashes on screen during this scene, and if you zoom in, adjust the contrast, and really study it, you can actually see that this symbol is the same one you see in Hornet's inventory while she has the Reaper crest equipped, especially the eye motifs. This could be our first and only confirmed crest origin. And lastly, we have a mysterious crest only shown in the images from the Edge magazine. Interestingly, we see 2 different versions of this crest, which might suggest it can be upgraded. Maybe. This crest also looks more defensive. It lowers the bind cost to just 5 silk notches, and it's also the only crest where we see unique silk notches in Hornet's HUD. Instead of the uniformed segments, the notches vary in sizes. Also, in 2 out of the 3 images, the silk spool is divided into an inner and outer circle, possibly allowing Hornet to heal twice in a row without needing to refill silk between uses. Sadly, we don't know yet how this crest affects Hornet's attacks or how many tools it supports, but in one image we do see at least 2 red tools equipped. Now that all of the crests have been covered, I would like you to look at all of them and tell me if you see something that changes alongside the HUD design. The length of the nail is different for some crests. Now this could be purely visual, or it could hint at a damage scaling with the crests. With defensive crests like the Harp crest or the Edge magazine one, Hornet's nail only reaches about 2nd or 3rd mask in length, but with aggressive crests like the Bear Claw and Reaper crest, the nail stretches all the way to the 5th mask. And this new mechanical looking crest we just discussed, it almost reaches the 5th mask too, and its nail design is much more distinct than the other ones. So yeah, maybe nail length is a visual indicator of your damage output, something worth keeping an eye on when we finally get our hands on the game. Beyond Crests altering Hornet's basic attacks, Silksong introduces another major combat system: skills. These function similarly to spells and nail arts from Hollow Knight, and we know they're officially called skills thanks to the control scheme shown in the demo. But like many things in Silksong, their implementation is still shrouded in mystery. From what we've seen, some skills seem to behave like spells, casting silk to activate, while others are closer to nail arts, requiring no skill at all. Take the Gossamer Storm, Silk Spear, Parry, and the Silk Dash. They all consume silk when activated, but on the other hand there are clearly skills like the Charge Slash attack Hornet performs in the Coral Forest, or this giant downward strike that doesn't seem to use any silk. However, it's worth noting that even silk consumption appears to be inconsistent. In the playable demo, for example, Silk Spear doesn't cost any silk to use, but that is likely to give players the free rein to experiment. But in the trailer footage, the exact same move clearly consumes silk. Similarly, the Gossamer Storm originally drained silk as it was being used, but in the more recent footage, it consumes a large chunk of silk instantly instead. So clearly, things are still evolving during the development. We don't know yet exactly how you will acquire skills. Like in Hollow Knight, they might come from bosses or NPCs, or perhaps they're tied directly to crests. For example, certain crests might come bundled with specific skills that can be swapped out later. In Hornet's HUD, your currently equipped skill is displayed as a white icon. When your silk meter is full enough to use it, the icon glows bright white, and when you don't have enough silk, it turns gray. So far, we've seen a few skill icons. The Gossamer Storm icon, which is a swirling circular symbol, a possible icon for the Silk Spear seen both in Hornet's HUD and in her inventory when the Reaper Crest is equipped, this unknown symbol from a screenshot, which doesn't seem to tie to any known ability, and finally this anchor-shaped icon that might be linked to the dashing move, though that's purely speculation. There's also this mysterious white needle icon that appears at the top of Hornet's inventory. It's unclear whether it's a skill, a passive effect, or something else entirely. Another notable difference from Hollow Knight is that Hornet seems to be limited to just one skill at a time, unlike the Knight who could access 3 distinct spells and multiple nail arts at once. This could be a balancing mechanic to emphasize the thoughtful choosing of skills you want to use in a certain situation. That's all we know for now about skills in Silksong. It's a system that seems to sit at a crossroads of spells, nail arts, and unique mechanics, and it's shaping up to be one of the most exciting and flexible parts of Hornet's kit. So to quickly summarize, silk is a crucial resource used for healing, tools, and skills. Tools are Hornet's version of charms. They include offensive weapons, utility, and exploration tools, some with limited uses. Crests are like loadouts that determine how many and what kind of tools and skills you can equip. Skills are a hybrid of spells and the nail arts. Some cost silk, others don't, and Hornet can only equip one at a time. With everything we've seen so far, it's clear that Silksong is building a deep and flexible combat system. But of course, we still didn't see everything. As we get closer to the release date, we'll hopefully learn more about these mechanics and how they all tie together. For now, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you noticed any mistakes in my editing or if I said something incorrectly, feel free to let me know in the comments, as I'm always looking to improve. And thank you all to everyone who watched and took part in my little quiz I made. It really meant a lot. Right now, out of over 200 comments, there isn't a single negative one, and trust me, I read every single one of them. There were people who pointed out my mistakes and criticized how I did certain things, and to those people I am genuinely thankful. I agree some questions were a bit off and probably only made sense in my head, so I will try to improve in the future. But for now, that's it, take care and goodbye.